Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate my power!
Don't try it!
Alright, so I want to reframe the way that we think about jiu-jitsu, and everyone has a spine. Everyone that does jiu-jitsu, every human being has a spine. So there's this idea of a spinal relationship at all times when you're doing jiu-jitsu. So the first spinal principle that I want to talk about is who has the high ground, okay? And if you go through the regular steps of jiu-jitsu, you're going to try to get into a dominant position. So if Predator lays down, and I pass his guard, and I try to get to the mount position. This is a clear example where my hips are higher than his, and my head is higher than his head, okay? If he turns either way, and I start to take his back, okay, he continues to turn, and I put my hooks in, my hips and my head are higher than his hips and his head. If we go knee on belly, my hips and my head are higher than his hips and his head. And even in side control, the orientation might be a little bit different, but my hips are higher than his hips and my head is higher than his head. So what makes these positions dominant is that my hips and my head are higher than his hips or his head. But if we take this into the standing position, for example, if I am simply able to get Predator into a front headlock position from here, okay, who's winning this exchange? I am, because my hips and my head are higher than his hips and his head. And being able to keep this in mind allows us to understand what we're looking for in a lot of these positions so that we can achieve success. So if I'm doing a collar drag, for example, and I'm trying to bring Predator down, my goal from the collar drag is to get my head and hips higher than his head and hips. So in these takedown situations, a lot of people refer to the idea that you want the high ground of having your head and hips higher than their head and hips. But this exists within so many different moves in jiu-jitsu. So let's say I'm looking to do an arm drag here. Predator's over here. And Predator goes into a headquarters position, right? If Predator is here, his hips and his head are higher than my hips and my head. And I just don't have the ability to get a successful arm drag because my hips and head don't have the ability to move up and to get higher than his hips or his head. But if I'm not in this position, Predator's on his knees, now when I hit the arm drag, I have the ability to get my hips and my head higher than his hips or his head. So the very nature and understanding of when to go for the technique relies on my own ability to get my hips and head higher than his. So try to reframe your jiu-jitsu to think about this relationship because it exists in so many different